Welcome to Paperweights, the podcast where two self-proclaimed gym rats and shooting enthusiasts delve into the world of literature with a sprinkle of humor. Although their biceps could crush a walnut, don't let that intimidate you. They also have a nerdy side. Mike and Brandon have a voracious appetite for reading, particularly in the fantasy genre, and they want to share their passion with you. So grab your protein shake and your favorite novel and join us for a humorous and insightful journey into the world of books with Paperweights.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Paperweights. I am one of your hosts, Mike.
And I'm the other host, Brandon.
Brandon
Mike.
was doing his best Big Papa Pump thing from a minute ago. Swolio over here.
There we go. This new shirt is the first shirt I had from got from Roosevelt's.
From who?
Roosevelt's.
Is it a local store or something?
No, they're online. They get licenses from all sorts of IPs. Also got this cool little koozie.
Nice.
You recognize that, right?
No.
Dude, come on.
I can't. Dude, it's early. I mean, now I see that it's closer and I can actually see what's going on there. Yeah, it's Han.
Yeah, it's Han Solo. It's got a little Han Solo.
I couldn't really see it when it was so far back from the camera. Like,
sorry, I should put it real close.
hey, look,
It's a high quality koozie too. But the Roosevelt's, I don't get paid from them, but
okay, cool.
I always thought it was Results, but it's Roosevelt's.
That's fair.
Yeah, I saw it. Like I can zoom in right here if I can find where my thing is.
Hopefully by now you know where your thing is.
There it is.
Awesome.
For those watching this thing, little chest hair right there, but
very little chest hair.
I'm not a very hairy man. It's got all these like Stormtrooper and Clone Trooper and
nice
kind of helmets on it.
Dig it.
They have some like polo style shirts as well. It's a little stretchy material, very lightweight, very comfortable.
Perfect for Louisiana in the summer.
Yeah, they're really proud of themselves though. There's like $70 a shirt.
I mean, they got to pay for that license somehow. I can't imagine anything from Lucasfilms is cheap to obtain.
No, and they have all sorts of like Universal IPs as well. Like they got this pretty cool polo that's got a bunch of like, it's like a floral leaf, palm leaf type design, but then hidden in it is the head of a raptor.
Okay.
It's titled Clever Girl from Jurassic Park.
Yep.
And that one's pretty cool. I think I could pull that off as a dad.
Absolutely. So here's the question everybody's dying to know the answer to. Have you seen Oliver and Company yet?
No, I haven't.
You had one job, Brandon. One job. You had one job, and that was to watch Oliver and Company.
I know. I kept going back and forth on that one too. I was like, you know what? Mike said I needed to go watch it that day, and I did not go watch it that day.
You've had 2 weeks, sir. You've had 2 weeks.
Maybe I'll watch it today.
You don't know what you're missing. What's going to happen is you're going to watch Oliver and Company, and you're going to be like, "Holy crap! Where has this been my whole life?" Right? He's got Cheech Marin playing a Chihuahua.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal.
What year did it come out?
Oh, Jesus Christ, I don't know.
We're gonna look this up. Oliver and Company, 1988.
Yep.
I was 3 years old, sir.
So, there's no excuse.
It's got Bette Midler, Joey Lawrence, Dom DeLuise.
Yes, Dom DeLuise plays a English bulldog. It's great.
Well, it's got to be on. It's Yeah, it is on Disney Plus.
No excuses.
No excuses. But I was correct though. They did have two dogs and a little girl in a trench coat, and
Hmm.
all dogs go to heaven. And they go up and they bet on the Grand Chahi, and the bet the bookkeeper, I guess the bookkeeper is like, do they know something I don't know?
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, it's the Grand Chahi's birthday.
That's funny.
He's surely gonna win today. Um, I did rewatch Dune Part One.
Yeah, you said you finally went through and read the book. So
Yeah, and I read the book, and I'm a third of the way through the second book. It's a much shorter book than the first book,
mhm.
and I I, I don't know why I never read Dune before. I think I always had this. So like I know some older science fiction is very heavy and like it's good, but it's hard to read.
Right,
It's because they don't explain any of the language that they come up with.
right.
They're just like,
Here it
"Hey,
is.
this is a schmarschwaba." And you're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that is a schmarschwaba." Um, what it does, I don't know.
but
I'll
that's
pick up
one.
through I'll pick up through context later on, and we don't have to go into detail about Dune in general, but I will say, after having read the book,
Hmm.
part one, like everything that happens in part one, is almost scene for scene from the first half of the book.
Yes.
However, the movie lacks explanation. So if you haven't read the book, you're
Hmm.
like it's a beautiful movie, and you're
Hmm.
like, "Oh, man." And I guess if you go back and watch it over and over again, you might pick up things and understand it a little bit better, but if
Hmm.
you just do a one through, you're like, "Uh, why?
Well,
What?"
so whenever they actually, and I may have mentioned this before, but they originally, not long after Dune first came out, after the book first came out, there was a guy that was going to do a literal scene for scene movie of the book, and the screenplay was 8 hours long.
Yeah, was that Jodorowsky?
Maybe did we talk about that, about how like some of the original artwork that they came up with ended up like influencing Star Wars and a few other things.
Maybe. So I know there's a documentary called Jodorowsky's
Mhm.
Dune, and it was this director, and so this documentary is basically explains how this director would have made a Dune movie, but
Mhm.
he never made one.
Yes. It was
Um,
it was scene for scene from the book, and it was going to be 8 hours long. Can you
I
imagine sitting? That's all day.
yeah, I mean, that's still shorter than a Lord of the Rings extended marathon
And this is true.
by 4 hours, and people do go to the movies and watch a marathon of the Lord of the Rings
Right.
extended. So, and
Yeah.
excuse my
Slews.
throat clearing. I'm getting over a sinus infection.
Good
It
times.
was an annoying sinus infection because it popped up 2 days before I was supposed to compete
Hmm.
in jujitsu. So yeah, I ended up taking a credit for a future tournament. Um, so rescheduling my competition for later this year.
Right.
And I was super excited about competing, man.
Well,
But
just use that fire for the next ones, because now you can, excuse me, get rested up, healed up, and be ready to go for the next one.
yeah, so
Yeah, that I
I
know
think that
one of the things in Dune that I would have appreciated a little more is like how, like, why do they know, like, why do some of them know sign language? It's explained a lot better in the book than, like, in the movie. They just do it, and you're like, huh? Like, okay, that's cool. They know sign language, but in the book, it's like little details like that are explained a little bit better.
the movie definitely uses the sign language way more
Hmm.
than the book does, though.
Yeah, that
Um,
and Duncan, Idaho. His like they in the movie or in the book rather, he's like kind of a different character. In the book, they basically split him, or in the movie rather, they basically split him into two characters. That they're not actually not Duncan, but like the little it's
Hines.
I need to go back and reread it, but there's one of the characters they basically split for the movie and make him two different people. I'll have to go back and reread it so I can tell you exactly who it is I'm thinking about because I remember watching it and then I read it and I was like, wait a second, this guy's not the same dude in the movie that he is here.
I do know they changed they made Dr. Kynes a woman in the movie. The imperial oncologist,
Oh
or
yeah.
the judge of change.
Hmm.
So
But there was somebody else that was part of the Atreides house that was significantly different between the book and the movie. And I figured out they kind of basically took some of the attributes from one character in the book and gave it to somebody else in the movie.
you'll have to
I'll
let
go.
me know because I didn't pick up on that at all.
I'll I'm actually planning on rereading it this week because, or over the next couple of weeks, because I know I can't go watch it this weekend, which is really a bummer. I really want to watch it opening weekend, but I'm going to go watch it next weekend.
I get to go watch it this weekend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I want to have a fresh read through it because I just watched part one again, which still loved it. Um, so I want to reread it and then have a fresh set of eyes for the second one.
And you also want to go watch David Lynch's, right?
Yeah, I do. I do need to go and watch the what was it, like the 1986 version or whatever.
Yeah, and Captain Jean-Luc Picard is actually plays Gurney Halleck
Nice.
in that one.
You know, you may have you said earlier you didn't know why you hadn't read Dune yet. You probably didn't read Dune for the same reason I didn't read Aragon. Like you're like, I'll get to it, I'll get to it, I'll get to it, and then you're like, crap, it's been 20 years, I haven't read it yet. Because
Probably.
because I was one of those people that like I watched Aragon and was like, oh, this is a pretty good movie. I don't understand what does everybody keep complaining about the movie for? And then
It's a terrible movie.
15 years later, I read the book and I'm like, oh, that's what everybody's problem is. It's they should have just called this something completely different and not called it Aragon because outside of him finding this dragon egg, nothing is the same.
And you did you ever watch I think the show was called Seekers of the Truth or Legend of the Seeker.
Legend of the Seeker. Hmm.
I love so it's a Sam Raimi production,
Hmm.
and he he did Evil Dead, and he
Hmm.
also did Hercules and
Yeah.
Xena.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of the actors that were in Hercules and Xena that were also in Legend of the Seeker. And outside of the first two episodes
Yeah.
of Legend of the Seeker, it's just like, hey, we're gonna take these characters and make up our own world and story.
Yeah. It was nothing with like, and there was actually two of them. There was that one that Sam Raimi did, and then there was another one. I don't remember if it was a movie or if it was another like short run series, but neither one of them were anywhere close to the book at all.
Like yeah, I don't know the other one you're talking about, but Legend of the Seeker, the first
Mhm.
two episodes basically just condensed book one down. And then they're like, oh, okay. Now you know who Richard Rawl is.
Right? That's yeah, it was pretty bad.
And I forget, oh, Joxer, the guy that played Joxer in Hercules played Zedekiah Zulzarander. I think that's the same actor.
Maybe I'm crazy. It was just the first one. I know there's So have you
There
ever
was a
read any of the Cassandra Clare books? The Mortal Instruments.
no. I I
It's a
watched
lot. Go ahead.
I watched the movie. There was a movie, right?
There's a movie and a TV series.
Okay. Yeah, I have never watched any of those.
Okay, so the movie is hot garbage. The TV series, I think, is on Hulu now. The TV series is a lot closer to the book, but I read all of the Mortal Instruments and then a few other, because she's got like four different series that kind of follow the same time, the same basic storyline as far as like what universe it's in.
Mhm.
And I kind of got burned out on it because I read like the entire first series, and then I read like the prequel to the series, and then I read something else, and I was just like, my brain needed a break. But that's another one that the series is actually relatively close, and the movie is just like, what's going on here?
Uh, yeah, so I was gonna say, so the guy that played Zedekiah Zulzerander
Mm-hmm.
didn't play, I don't think played Joxer. What I do know him from is playing, uh, he was in the Mad Max movies, and he was Jedediah the pilot, which is the
Okay.
crazy,
The
crazy
crazy
guy that
pilot.
had the gyrocopter
Mm-hmm.
that Max finds. And he also played the villain Tion Midan from, he was one of the separatist leaders in Star Wars prequels.
Okay.
He was white face, red eyes, and it had this like red thing that came up along the sides of his neck.
Hmm.
If you saw a picture of him, you'd know.
Yeah.
Another series that I read recently that I hadn't read before that was big and famous is Raymond Feist's The Magician. Um, or rather, it's a Rift War Saga is the name of the series.
Okay.
And so there's four books in the main series, but I think there's like 30 something books in the universe.
Oh wow.
Um, and originally it was a trilogy, but they ended up splitting the first book
Okay.
up. And so like the first book was called Magician, but then they
Mhm.
split it up into Magician Apprentice and Magician Master.
Mm.
And then there's Silverthorn and A Darkness at Sethanon. And those books were really good.
Really?
Um, and I have some of the other books that I want to read. Because like the main book starts on this one world.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is there's like a rift and aliens come through, or
Okay.
beings from a different uh, universe or uh, dimension come
Mm-hmm.
through, and there's nothing that they can really do to stop them. So the whole first four books, it focuses a lot on the tensions on this side of the rift,
Right.
the human side of the rift. Then there's a trilogy that kind of that I have that focuses on the events on the other side of the rift during that same time period.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other series that follow different characters that show up throughout the book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but let's see, when was it written? I have it up right here.
Who's the main protagonist in that? Who's the main character?
1980. It was written in 1982. And what is his name?
I don't know. That's why I asked you.
Right. I'm trying to remember his name. Let's see. Characters. Why?
It's Harry Connick Jr.
So they didn't make it in a movie or a series or a TV show. Um, Pug. Pug
Pug.
is the character's name
That's
that
a
you
hey.
follow.
That's a heck of a name for a character, Pug.
right? And his friend Tomas. I love
Pug.
Tomas. Pug is a very lovable character. Then there was Jimmy, who was basically um when you meet Jimmy, he's like an orphan assassin slash thief.
Orphan slash assassin.
Yeah.
Assassin.
Yeah, it's kind of like his thing, and there's a whole series that follows him at some
Okay.
point too. He ends up, yeah, not giving anything away, but he does have his own little series that I have not read. So,
Right on.
yeah, that's another good book series that I read a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the first ones that kicked off me reading a whole lot more, because there were several years I went by and I wasn't doing much reading at all.
Yeah.
And so, and last year I read 29 books. This year
Dang.
I've finished 6 already.
Right on.
So, I'm reading a whole lot more lately.
I know. I kind of know what you mean because like there was a long stretch. I mean, I was a like I read all the time. Like I was a big time reader, and then I went back to school in 2005. No, 2000. That's wrong. I went back to school the first time in 2010, and then from then until 2020, almost 10 years, I didn't really read very much because I got 2 master's degrees in that time frame. So I was reading so much for school that I was like I didn't want to read anything else.
Mhm.
And then seriously, like the first weekend after I was done with school, my wife was like, "Are you reading a book?" I was like, "Yes. Yes, I am." She's like, "I'm going to leave you alone for a little while because it's been a long time since you've just sat down and read a book." Because I mean, that's like it was one of the guys I work with. There's this kid that I work with. He's in his 20s, and we haven't been living in this area. I keep saying we haven't lived here very long. We've been here like 8 months now. But he's like, "Hey, have you been to this bar? Have you been to this bar?" I'm like, "No, no." Well, what about this restaurant? Have you been here? And it's like all these like trendy, hip places downtown. And it's like, dude, it's like, I get it. I was like, but those like the days of me caring about going to certain restaurants and the right bars, I'm like, those days are long behind me. He's like, "Well, what do you and your wife do for fun? You'll sit around and read books." And I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes we do." And he looked at me, he said, "You know I'm making fun of you, right?" I'm like, "You know I'd have to care what you think for that to be funny, or for you me to care that you're making fun of me, right?" And he was like, "Huh, okay." It's like, "Yeah, I do. We sit around and we read." Sometimes I'll sit out on the front porch and smoke a cigar with a glass of whiskey and read a book. Like it's just
I've seen
that
pictures of that.
right? And that wasn't staged mostly, but I have that's what I do for fun. I sit around and read.
I do too. Uh, and my wife, now she's gotten into audiobooks. So
Mhm.
she's been reading a lot, and like she'll go through three audiobooks a week sometimes.
Nice.
I never know how long she goes. She doesn't talk to me about the books. I don't know if she just doesn't think that it's now it's I don't even know what genre she reads. I think it's most like thriller or mystery kind of um almost. I mean it's all fiction,
Mhm.
but kind of like true crime
Oh.
type stuff. And so, maybe I don't read that stuff, but not to say that I'm not interested. But
Mhm.
if she talked to me about a book, I'd be like, "Oh, good, well, cool. Well, what happened? Like here."
Maybe that's why she doesn't talk to you about it. She just wants to read it and like because like my wife, the book she reads, she's like, I'm like, "Oh, what happened here?" She's like, I'm just reading it, and I couldn't tell you anything about it after I read it. I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's fair." She's legit reads it and brain dumps it right afterwards. Like she'll remember enough about a book to know if she liked it and wants to read the next one, and that's about it.
Yeah, I do know this week she finished a book that somebody recommended,
Mhm.
and when she got to the end of it, she was pissed because it was lame. So, it's like, I hate it when that happens.
That's fair.
Uh,
I've actually there's a book. It's I don't really think it's a self-help book. It's more like a personal philosophy book, I guess, that every single person I know that has read it or listened to it has loved it and recommends it, and they say they read it all the time. And I've read it and listened to it, and it's just not for me. And it's The Alchemist.
I think you told me about that book.
Yeah, it's honestly it's a good book, but the way that it's written and the way the message is delivered in the audio version, it just misses me. It's just not for me. Like there are some cool little lessons in it, and I don't remember if that one's right here or not. Anyway, there's a bunch of neat little lessons in it, and it's just not the style of it is not to my taste. So, but that's one of those like the overwhelming majority of people that I know that have read that book absolutely love it. And I'm just like, "Meh." And then I give them that response. I'm like, it was okay. And they're like, what? How did you not love it? I'm like, I just didn't.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but back in January, I actually bought one of the Sarah Maas books.
Oh yeah.
But apparently I bought um not the series that you and Justin read, the other
The other
series.
series. What was it? The
Um
a court of rose and thorns or something like that.
yeah, not
Yeah.
Throne of Glass
Hmm.
or whatever it is. And I got like 80 pages in,
Uh-huh.
and once I was talking to you about it and you're like, "Yeah, I think that's her spicier one," then
Mhm.
I started to see where the
Where that was
things were
going.
gonna go, and I'm like, then I got bored,
Uh-huh.
and so then I shelved it. But I told myself that I'm gonna read that book so I could find out why all those women on my Facebook feed are posting that book.
Dude, one of my friends this girl that I was friends with in Alaska, she posted the other day saying, uh, "Sarah Moss, you're an amazing author." That's all. I'm like have I not read the right book from her? Because the series that I read from her was like almost like she'd get to the end of a book and have like an ADD moment, like, okay, now we're going this way. Like, now we're going this way. And I'm like the writing's okay. But again, maybe it's like The Alchemist. Maybe it's just obviously not the target audience. But I've read almost the entire first series of Throne of Glass. I think I've got one book left to read. Because like with
Gotcha.
that series, once it all finalizes and it's all going the same direction, it actually does pick up and gets pretty good. But with that series, like the very first book, the Assassin's Blade or whatever the name of it is, where it's like four short stories,
Mhm.
that book is actually really good. It's just four short stories kind of setting up the main character, like giving you a background for her. But then the first probably 2, 3 books after that, like you get to the ending and you're like, what? We're doing this now? And then once like after probably about book 4, whenever or about halfway through the end of book 3 into book 4, it's all going the same direction and all starts to meld better. But the first couple of books, you're like, huh? Wait, what? So, and it's definitely the less spicy of the books.
Time magazine says that Throne of Glass is one of the best fantasy book series of the past decade, though.
It's decent.
What else has come out in the past decade?
Nothing really that I can think of. Nothing that's that expansive. Because I mean that like does I will give her that. Like her character development is actually pretty decent. I would give it. It's actually pretty good. It's not. I won't stop her at decent. It's actually pretty good for her character development. But I haven't read the A Court of Roses and Thorns or whatever it is. The one that you bought. I haven't read that one at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Um, yeah, another book I read the first book in the series, and I need to reread it and then read the rest in the series is The Emperor's Blade by Brian Stavely.
I hadn't read that one.
Um, so like it starts off, so it's called The Chronicle of the Unhewn Throne is the series name.
Okay.
Um, and basically it starts off in like the emperor is dead, killed by enemies.
Okay.
He's got three children, and they're all in different places. Like one's becoming a monk, one's becoming like a um essentially like a special ops warrior,
Okay.
and then there's the daughter. And so then there's also a plot of people that are trying to take the throne, like subsume and get rid of the heirs
Mm-hmm.
and put themselves on the throne. Um, so it's fun. It was a fun book, the
Mm-hmm.
first one I read, and I need to reread it and then continue with the series. But I actually modeled one of my we played a game called Blades in the Dark,
Okay.
and one of my characters I modeled after one of the characters in that book.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to do that a whole lot. It's just model my characters after characters that I love from a series or a book, TV show, movie,
Mm-hmm.
book series. So
I mean, that kind of takes away some of the pressure of coming up with everything yourself. You can kind of model it a little bit and then change it to where you see fit. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of a role playing game, right?
yeah, and so one of my it's hilarious. The If you listen to the episode last week with Chris, and he generated one of the characters' names is Slocum, and that's actually the name of one of my characters from a D&D campaign, and he was a barbarian, and I started off modeling him after uh, a character from the Stormlight Archives, which we plan on reading later in the
Mm-hmm.
year. And so he had this ability where he could call on the Storm Father,
Mm-hmm.
which is a character in the Stormlight Archives. And so I was based it off of him, and then
Mm-hmm.
as we played through one of our fellow characters, and actually Chris's character, who was a sorcerer slash cleric of Paylor, died in combat to a undead beholder.
Mm-hmm.
The beholder had he shot a disintegration beam at him, and so she died. And so after that, I was actually able on the next level up, worked with the DM and switched my subclass from Path of whatever it was where that gave me the storm ability,
Mm-hmm.
and I switched it to Path of the Zealot and devoted myself to Paylor in honor of my friend who
Mm-hmm.
died. And so that was a pretty cool change in my character. And I had a reason for it. And, typically most DMs they want to have a story reason if you're
Right.
going to have a change like that, because the rules don't necessarily allow you to do that,
Mm-hmm.
but having a narrative reason could do that and allow you to just switch up the flavor of your character
Mm-hmm.
and you know you don't have the abilities of both things.
Right.
So you're not OPing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but or overpowering. If anybody who's listening doesn't know what OP means, I'm not pissing myself. I'm not overpowering my
I was gonna
character.
say OPP. Yeah, you know me.
No. Uh, so yeah, it does take off a lot of that because you can be like, all right, I not everybody can just come up with
Mm-hmm.
every nuance and personality trait. And so if you can model it after something, it's like, what would this person do?
Right.
So
Yeah, and as far as like you changing your subclass, like I've actually that's one of the things I've kind of seen people talk about in other videos is as long as you can kind of carry the storyline of the campaign and it makes sense and it might make it more interesting, usually the DMs are like, okay, cool. But if you're just like, no, I want to do this, they're like, no, can't do it. But as long as it like makes sense and can make the story more interesting, they're like, I'll allow it.
yeah, yeah. See what else can we
What
talk about?
I tell you what else I did this weekend that I haven't done in a long time.
What was that?
I finally went. I joined a gym.
Oh, nice.
I joined a gym. I haven't been a member of a gym since we lived in Arkansas. Because I mean, I've got a garage gym very similar to you that I love training in my garage gym. But this house, the garage is incredibly small. Like my truck won't fit in our garage because it's a 1940s house. They weren't building massive 2-car plus garages in the 40s.
I will say, looking in your background right now, I would not be able to tell that's a 1940s house.
Well, yeah, this part was I can't I don't know if it was added on like after the original part of the house, but like if you were on the first level of our house, 'cause this is like a Cape Cod style. So it's like everything is pretty much on the first floor, and then like they they added the master suite up the stairs. So there's like this is like the office is here, bedrooms over there. But like if you to see it from the outside, you're like, okay, yeah, this is definitely a 1940s house.
Gotcha. There's a lot of angles in your house.
There's a well here right up here there are because every like this angle here is the roof line because so like there's like this part of the roof right here. I mean like that's part of the roof, that's part of the roof, and then in the bedroom the walls kind of go like this, so we don't really have straight walls up here. Everything's following the roof line. But anyway, I found a gym. Actually, the way I found this gym was I sold a piece of equipment on Marketplace, and the guy that bought it was the owner of this gym. He's like, "Hey, just come by whenever you want to, if you want to come check it out." And so I did finally recently, and I was like, "Okay." As the kids say, the vibe was right because I was looking for a more less commercial gym, more like powerlifting, grungy type gym because that's kind of what I like.
Hmm.
And completely dug it. So I worked out a trade with them, and I traded. I figured if I'm going to be going to a gym, I don't need as many specialty bars as I've got because I've got a couple different. I've had 3 specialty bars in my gym. I had a deadlift bar, a Sorinex Ox bar, and a safety squat bar. So I traded my deadlift bar for a 1-year membership.
No.
So I told him, I said, look, said, because he had told me when he came to buy the other piece of equipment that they wanted one, that they wanted a deadlift bar. And so I was like, look, if I trade you my deadlift bar, I can still use it when I come here. And then and I get we can work out a deal. And so we worked out a deal. So I got a 1-year
Nice.
membership, and I went and worked out Saturday and did deadlifts on the bar that I traded them, and it was great. It was phenomenal.
Meanwhile, the gym that I used to go to, which is 1/10 of a mile from my house, just at the entrance of my neighborhood, they recently closed down.
Oh, it sucks.
And I mean, I hadn't been a member since 2020.
Mhm.
um,
We've got that sweet squat rack too.
yeah, and in the past month, uh, my cousin has actually come and worked out with me for the past 4 weeks.
Nice.
So have somebody that comes and lives with me, and I
Mhm.
actually, for the first time in a very long time, I've been consistent. Now, I mean, this whole year I've been consistent with lifting.
Mhm.
So the first month it was 4 weeks in a row of two days a
Mhm.
week of lifting in addition to jujitsu. And then in the second month I added a third day.
Mhm.
So like the first month it was squats and floor press.
Mhm.
And then the next month I added deadlifts. So
Mhm.
I got squats, floor press, and deadlifts. And so I'm doing floor press instead of just regular bench.
Mhm.
Um, One, I'm not competing in powerlifting, so I don't have to specialize on the bench press itself.
Right.
And you'll still get pretty good strength gains on floor press
Mhm.
without putting a whole bunch of stress on your shoulders.
Mhm.
Um, and so I've been doing that. I mean, you can attack the rest of that range on the bench press with other movements.
Mhm.
Excuse me. But with the floor press, you're keeping your range to where your elbow is not dropping below your shoulder.
Right.
So you're not like bringing it way back
Mhm.
here and going up. So you're putting less stress on your shoulder and your chest and your bicep tendon right there.
Right.
Um, so it's fun. I think eventually I'll add a fourth day.
Mhm.
Um, so it's just getting used to the recovery, like the amount of work that's there, gauging it,
Mhm.
recovering with jujitsu. Um, then I was prepping to compete as well. So,
Right.
uh, but yeah, I'm excited. I base it off of I based it off of 531,
Mhm.
and then my for the main lift. So I've just got 3 sets of that main barbell lift on those days,
Mhm.
and then the accessory work is just um, has to do with that portion of the body, lower
Mhm.
or upper body, or um, kind of a cardio endurance situation as well.
Mhm.
And that goes between things I learned from working with Terrence Mitchell
Mhm.
back in 2020, and then my days with Wolf Brigade. So a lot of the stuff that I learned from them.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah,
Right
there's
on,
that.
man.
You mentioned you went somewhere this last week and you kind of disconnected.
Oh yeah, we
What'd you do?
so my kids were on winter break this past week,
Hmm.
and apparently all the other people in this area call it ski week, but we're not in that tax bracket, so we don't go skiing. Um, so we went to Great Wolf Lodge.
Which
Down,
one was that one you went to?
it's in South Ohio.
Okay.
So my sister-in-law, whenever she found out we were going to Great Wolf Lodge, she was like, Dallas? I'm like, yeah, we're flying from Ohio to Dallas to go to Great Wolf Lodge. That's what we're doing. So we we caught some special where it was like almost half the cost to go because it's off season. Not that particular week. Not everybody's out of school. Like there were quite a few kids that my kids ran into from this area that went to Great Wolf Lodge for some part of that week because it's an hour down the road. But I definitely we spent about a day and a half there because we got there a little early and spent the entire next day. I could have been done after that half day because like I don't know what I was expecting Great Wolf Lodge to be, but after about a half day, I was like, okay, we can go home now, right? Like this is not this is had a little wave pool, like 6 or 8 water slides. I didn't count. My youngest counted and she loved them all. But my kids had a good time. We were able to just kind of sit back and relax. My kids are old enough now that they can go do stuff without us having to be right there with them every step of the way. So they went off and did stuff. They came back and checked in every once in a while. And we all in all we had a good time. But it
Now
definitely
you're making me nervous because yeah, my father-daughter trip this year, we're
uh-huh.
going to Tulsa, and then we're going down to Grapevine for that Great Wolf Lodge there. And
I think the reason why I could have been done is we are even my oldest is like we just like roller coasters better because the whole time we were at Great Wolf Lodge, so Kings Island, which is it's actually a pretty good sized amusement park, is across the parking lot from Great Wolf Lodge. I mean, you can see it right; it's right there. And so the whole time, my oldest was like, "Think
taunting
Kings
you.
Island is open? Think we could go? Think we go to Kings Island?" I was like, "It's closed." Because you don't want to be riding roller coasters when it's 20 degrees outside. She was like, "Yeah, good point."
Wind burn, frost
Yeah.
burn.
Well, like, she was like, "Well, you wouldn't be on the roller coaster long." I was like, "Yeah, but think about the people that are having to stand there and work the roller coaster. Like, let's not just think about us here for a minute." So that's why I think, like, because like my little one loved it. She had a great time, and really and truly, my oldest had a great time too. But I was just like, I was kind of over it and ready to go. But again, I'd rather go ride roller coasters. And actually, what I told my wife, I think the perfect scenario, if we were to do that again, would be use Great Wolf Lodge for the hotel because the hotel room was actually really nice. Um, use them for the hotel, go to Kings Island, ride roller coasters all day, and then when it gets like hot and crowded, go back to Great Wolf Lodge and chill in the water park. I was like, that would be that's the ticket right there. But I think
Gotcha.
y'all have a good time. Like I said, it's just not my thing.
I think I think I booked us 4 nights there. Um, so yeah, we're gonna be there for a while.
Again, it's y'all might have a better time than we did. Like we had a good time, but like again, after like I could have been done after that first half day. So
I mean,
maybe it'll
the
probably be
thing
better
is,
for y'all.
I also got it about 50% off as well.
Yeah, that makes a big
I,
difference.
I got that deal. So like that entire 4 days or whatever
Hmm.
was like $1,000, and that included the dining. Like I
Right.
just paid for the dining for the entire
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. They get you on food calls. I think we probably could have used a voucher. It was food was expensive.
Yeah. So
It's like $8 for a beer. So be have a heads up on that.
I don't think I'm gonna be having too many. I mean, it's just me and
Yeah,
her.
it's just two of y'all. So
Um, Most of the time on our father-daughter trips, like I might have one or two
yeah.
on any given day.
Hmm.
But I know when we went to St. Louis, the hotel we stayed at in St. Louis was pretty cool because there's like this moon theme.
Okay,
Like the owner of it just liked the moon and space
that's
stuff.
cool.
So you had like all this campy like moon landing art
Hmm.
as well as little like in the hallways there might be some little showcases that are
Hmm.
like case boxes with memorabilia from stuff from the
That's
60s
cool.
and 70s.
Hmm.
And they even had some little toys and gadgets for sale in the little commissary down by the front desk.
Hmm.
And on the rooftop there was this giant like moon that orbited, like spun around,
That's
and
kind of cool.
there was a bar up there. And so one of the nights we just went up to the rooftop bar,
Hmm.
and her and I played cards while I drank a beer and she
Hmm.
had a Shirley Temple.
Hmm.
And then, we retired back to the room after that. So um yeah. I mean, I also have family in that area, so
Hmm.
we could just like leave and go visit family while we're there instead of just hanging out in that place the entire time.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what we did not do. We did not leave the hotel the entire time. Like we got there and changed, like checked into our room, changed the swimsuits, went to the water park, and was basically there until dinner. And the next day we woke up, had breakfast, and we were in the water park the minute it opened. And we did not leave until, like, we even ate lunch there because they had a bar, and they had a rest, like a little burgers and chicken nugget place that you could order food from. So we ate lunch in there, and we basically stayed until almost dinner time, and then went back for a little bit after dinner. So we did not leave at all. Kind of felt like Hotel California. We didn't. Once we checked in, we never left.
yeah, I mean, I'm leaving it up options, but I think most of the time we're going to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because for 4 days, $1,000 for that, and just
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, it's a nice experience. I
Yeah,
mean, not terribly expensive for what it is. I mean,
yeah. For what it
get
is,
a
no, it's
hotel
not.
room and admission to a water park for
And
4 days
and food, because you said you
and
when it,
food
yeah,
for
that's,
two people.
it's not bad.
Like, I mean, that's like $120 per person per
Right.
day to sleep, eat,
Mm-hmm.
and have fun.
Yeah.
That's like that's a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
If you were like, hey, $120, I'll feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'll give you a place to sleep, and you can have all the fun in a water park you want all day long. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a good deal.
All right, deal.
Mm-hmm.
Deal. Done. There is there's a Brazilian steakhouse,
Mm.
kind of like Texas to Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a locally owned one
Okay.
in Richardson, Texas, which is right outside of Plano and
I think you
Dallas.
told me about this once, this place.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
went there in August of last year. I took Jules,
Mm-hmm.
and my uncle and my cousin came as well. And like it's loads better than Texas to Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been to Fogo de Chao, but I imagine Fogo and Texas to Brazil are about equal.
Right.
This place was better, and like the best thing that they had was this like grilled pineapple.
Hmm.
It was just like, oh my God, give me a whole skewer, please. Um, we all tried chicken hearts as well.
Okay.
Like Jules even tried the chicken heart. And
Mm-hmm.
she like, we are all like, "Yeah, I'll have one." And she's, "Yeah, I'll have one too." She ate
Mm.
it, and I was like, "How was it?" She just said, "Do you know what you ate?" She said, "No."
It's like this. Okay.
It was a chicken heart. She goes, "What?"
Sometimes it's better if you don't ask.
Yeah, she's interesting because like yesterday I cooked eggs for her and my wife, and I always put a little heavy cream in the eggs to make them a little creamier,
All right,
and
Gordon.
they taste amazing. My eggs are amazing. Okay, no lie. And but I was out of heavy cream, so for the first time ever, I was just like, you know what? What if I put just a little bit of mayonnaise and mix a little bit of mayonnaise in with the eggs? And I did that and cooked it, and my wife said it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Jules had already eaten like 4 forks full of eggs
Mm-hmm.
by the time I said, "Hey, I put mayonnaise in it." And then all of a sudden, she just picks her plate up and pushes it to the side.
I was like, nope, done.
And we're like, "What's going on?" She goes, "I don't like mayonnaise in my eggs." I was like,
Like you
"You
just
would have."
those 4 shovelfuls you just ate tells me otherwise.
Right? It's like, you would have never known had I
Mhm.
never mentioned it. She goes, "I could taste the mayonnaise." I was like, "I'm
No, you
sure you could."
didn't. Sure, you could, bud. Sure, absolutely.
You have some superpowers
Yeah,
there.
kids are funny like that. Like they'll like I know mine. They'll be eating something, and I'll say what it is, and like, oh, I don't like that. I'm like, you just ate 3/4 of what's on your plate, so that tells me you do like it.
Right. Or when they're like, man, like if they really like these certain things and they can be on the same plate and they can
Mhm.
eat them in the same meal, but if they're touching and they're mixed together, they're
I
done.
I can't say anything because I'm still that way now. Like I don't want my I've gotten better about my food touching, but it used to I like those little plates that have like the dividers.
Yeah.
I could have eaten off of those until I was well into my 30s because I just the only time that it's okay for food to be touching is like Thanksgiving when there's really no other options where everything
Yeah.
just kind of gets piled up on top of it anyway. But other than that, I want my food separate.
And speaking of food, so I hung out with a friend last night, and we went ate at a restaurant, and we shared a couple dozen oysters, and then ordered our food. But the guy next to us at the bar, he was there with a lady, and I just happened to hear when they ordered their food, and they both ordered the seafood gumbo.
Okay.
And one ordered it with rice, the other ordered it without rice. And I remember this because I remember him saying, he made a comment it's like, "Well, do y'all have cauliflower rice?" And I was just like, "Oh." So after they were done eating, I turned to
Hmm.
him and said, "Hey," his lady had gotten up to go to the bathroom. And so I turned to him and said, "How was the gumbo?" And he said, "Can I be honest with you?" I was like, "I I want you to be honest."
Yes, I don't want you to lie to me. I'm asking you your opinion.
And so he went on, and I let him talk, and
Hmm.
he was giving his opinion, and he's like, then all of a sudden he goes, "You know what? Ma'am, ma'am, this man needs a bowl of gumbo. Put it on my ticket." And I was just like, "You don't have to do that." And she came over and looked and said, "Do you want it?" I said, "Well, if he insists on buying it,
Right.
make it a cup
Right.
and not a bowl."
Yeah.
And so then I got a cup of gumbo on this guy, and I actually agreed with his assessment of it, that
Hmm.
it was actually more of a stew and not
Right. Not an
gumbo.
actual gumbo.
And like, it said there was crab in it, but other than a shell, I couldn't have told you, like, I
Mm,
couldn't have confirmed that there was crab meat in that gumbo.
right. Was it
Uh,
like super? Was it like super thin too? Like not really.
no,
Oh,
but it was also oddly sweet. Like like the
huh.
broth was sweet.
Interesting.
And I've never had like a sweet gumbo.
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
tell you what. I was so having lived the places we've lived, I every once in a while I'll see some place like sells or advertising like Cajun food or Cajun cuisine or whatever, and I'm for whatever reason, I guess because I hate my life, I forced myself to try it, even though I just know it's not going to work out. Well, we were living in Maryland, and I was getting ready. Matter of fact, we had gone down to Chesapeake Bay because I was doing a half Ironman the next day. Went to a restaurant because they're on the menu online. It said they had jambalaya. I was like, sweet, it's a boatload of carbs. This will be perfect to eat before doing this race tomorrow. Got down there, got it, and I actually asked the waitress. I was like, ma'am, I ordered jambalaya. She was like, yeah, that's it. I was like, this is soup. This is not jambalaya. It's like, no, no, that's jambalaya. I was like, and it was seriously I wish I could go back and find. I wish I could show you a picture of it because I took a picture of it. This was back in 2015, I guess 2014, 2015. Would have been 2015. Posted it on my Facebook. I was like, where are my hometown people at? And so to agree with me that this is not jambalaya, like these people in Maryland are saying it is, and that was probably one of my biggest posts of that year because everybody was like, "Oh my god, what is that mess?" I couldn't even eat it. I gave it to Kelly, and then we were in Alaska eating at this restaurant. It was a pretty popular restaurant for this area, and food was actually pretty good. But I went there one time, and on their menu, they had a thing called jambalaya sauce. And the first time we went, exactly, that's the same look I had. The first time we went, my wife was like, "Don't you dare say a word," because she knew what I was thinking. The second I read it, I was like, "Huh, jambalaya sauce." She was like, "Don't do it, just don't." So I kept my mouth shut. Well, the next time I went, I was with a couple of friends, and my wife wasn't there. And so I got to ask the question. I was like, I looked at the poor waitress, and she didn't know what she was walking into. I said, "Man, what exactly is jambalaya sauce?" And she said, "Oh, it's what they pour over jambalaya whenever they serve it." I'm like, "No, no, no, that's not a thing. They don't. There's no sauce on a jambalaya." It's like, so let's try that again. And this poor girl, she was so confused. I'm pretty sure she was born and raised in Fairbanks and had no clue what jambalaya actually was. Because then she tried to say it was like what happens when you grind it up and make it into. I was like, nope, no, it's rice. It's not like you're not helping at all. And they just kept going further and further. Just like this is what happens when you stray from God, right here. So you get jambalaya sauce. It was bad. And then my friend ordered it and was like, "No, you have to try it now because you gave this poor girl absolute hell about jambalaya sauce." And it was every bit as terrible as you could imagine that it would be. So those are that's the reason why I don't I still like say I hate my life because I still try to order Cajun food when I am in different states. Haven't done it in Ohio yet.
Usually yeah, I usually don't go to Cajun restaurants, other places. But I have seen like there's a Cajun place that opened up in Lafayette area called Tad's,
Okay.
and they have it's their second location. The first location is actually in Katy, Texas,
Okay. That's
but they
interesting.
moved from Louisiana to Katy,
Okay.
opened it up there, then opened one back over here. So they are,
That's probably
from
pretty good
Louisiana.
then. Yeah.
There's also a place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which I'm probably going to have to try when we go there,
Mhm.
where people moved from Louisiana
Mhm.
to Tulsa. And so like if that's the case, then okay, yeah, I'll try it. Like
Right.
if if the creators, the owners opened it up
Mhm.
and they created the menu and said, "Hey, this is the recipe we're using,"
Right.
then I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
But if it's some commercial type thing, so like
Mhm.
I don't I can't think of any that um like if it was a Red Lobster of Louisiana,
Right.
then I probably wouldn't go.
Mhm. Yeah, the only time that it's ever actually truly worked out was we were in Arkansas, and there was a brewery that I wanted to go to because I tried some of their beer and I liked it, so I wanted to go actually eat at the brew house because I knew they had food. And I walked in, and it was me and my wife, and I'm looking at the menu. The menu was nothing but like Cajun food. I mean, they had boudin balls, they had crawfish, they had fried crawfish. I think they had a bunch of Cajun stuff on there. And I looked at them. I said, "Look," I said, "No offense, please." I said, "But what are basically like, what are y'all's credentials to be cooking all this Cajun food?" Like that was kind of what I asked it a little bit nicer than that. And the waitress was like, "Oh, well, the head chef's from New Orleans." I was like, "Say less. Let's go." She was like, "Yeah, the head chef's from New Orleans. This is his menu." I was like, "All right, here we go." That's the only time it's ever worked out for me. Every other time I've been like just sorely disappointed. So
Oh, back to books. I was thinking, have you read, let's see, I think I asked you before, Neuromancer by,
nope,
oh my God, who,
never read it.
William Gibson, sorry, William Gibson. So this is a precursor to like um The Matrix and stuff. It's a very good book. I read it once. I need to reread it.
Hmm.
That one's really good. There's Snow Crash.
Nope,
No, but that's Neil Stevenson. And yeah, that one's really good. A really nice sci-fi thriller. Um,
Can't say that I have either one of them.
man, I did. I took this at LSU. I took this sci-fi lit course,
Okay.
and we had all these different things that we read. And Snow Crash was one of them. We read a book called Trouble on Triton, which was really interesting.
Mhm.
Like characters in there could actually just like legit have a sex change, like completely or experience it from the other gender.
Hmm.
Um, Intimacy in sex from the other gender. Um, we also, I think, we read and studied Minority Report,
Okay.
and also Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is what
Interesting.
that was Philip K. Dick, and that short story is what Blade Runner was based off of.
Huh.
So, but none of those you've read none of those, right?
None. None of
Gotcha.
them. I never even heard of any of them.
Oh man, yeah.
Except for
What?
Minority Report. I've heard of that one, but I haven't heard of any of the other ones.
Yeah.
I was more English lit than sci-fi whenever I was
Okay.
in college.
What? So classics.
Yeah, like I read a lot of the class because again, I've got my so my mom, my grandmother, and my great grandmother were all educators. Like my grandmother was they used to have a thing called a specialist degree. Basically, you would call it a master's degree now, but it was they called it a specialist. She was an English specialist. Um, so whenever I was a kid, she had a copy of. I thought it was right there because it was been up here forever. Apparently, it's in the basement though. She had a leather bound copy of the complete works of Shakespeare,
Okay.
and I was infatuated with it because it was a leather bound book that was that was really cool looking. And she said, "Well, you can have it once you memorize the um, the scene where Romeo and Juliet are talking to each other or they're both talking, but it's the balcony scene.
Okay. Yep.
I had to memorize and recite that whole thing to her, and I was like 8 years old. So like Dickens, oh geez,
Mary Shelley.
I do like Mary Shelley. I've read Frankenstein a couple times. Hemingway.
Pride and Prejudice.
I've actually never read Pride and Prejudice. That book looks like it would just be an absolute kick in the face to read.
It is actually
That and War and
really
Peace
good.
both look like it would just be like I would rather slam my head in a door than read both of them.
Pride and Prejudice is a really good book.
Are you talking about Pride and Prejudice or Pride and Prejudice and Vampires? Which one are you talking about?
Pride and Prejudice. The original.
Yeah. Nope, never read it. But that's kind of what I came up reading. So I didn't really get into sci-fi fantasy until much later in life.
Yeah. Written by Jane Austen. Pride
Yeah,
and
Jane Austen.
Prejudice.
Not a big fan of Anne Rice. I've tried to read a few of her books.
I've never read her books.
It's some people really dig it. I try to get into it because she's from Louisiana and like has they had the big vampire tours for her house down in New Orleans every year until Katrina. And then I found The Witching Hour. There it is. I found The Witching Hour at a used bookstore for like $5, and I was like, okay, let me get this and try and read it. I just can't get into it. It's so like it's not really bad written. I just can't get into it.
Gotcha. No, like Pride and Prejudice, legit. I took a British lit course
Mm-hmm.
in college as well, and Pride and Prejudice was one of those books that we read, and like most people are like, "Oh, it's a little like romance
Right.
novel for women." It's like, well, no, it's actually for men too. And I really enjoyed it.
Hmm.
What else? What's your favorite Shakespeare play?
I like Macbeth. Um, yeah, it would probably have to be either. I'm actually not a big fan of Hamlet. Like, I think Hamlet's okay. Um,
Do you like
but
any of the comedies, like Twelfth Night?
it's been a long time since I've read. Like, at one point, I'd read almost every single Shakespeare play because I had the book. Um, yeah, Macbeth is probably the only one that really sticks with me. I mean, obviously, everybody knows Romeo and Juliet. That's like one of his probably his most popular ones. Um, and I always
Othello.
always love whenever people are like, "Oh my god, I wish I had a love like Romeo and Juliet." I'm like, they were two teenagers that met each other once and then killed each other or killed themselves. I'm like, no, it was like a 3-day love tryst. No, you don't want to love like that.
People severely misunderstand
Yeah,
the concept of that
yeah,
novel.
they've or my the other one that I love lately is they people are like, "Oh, I want to love like Haley and the Joker." I'm like, you realize he tortured her and like broke her mentally before she like fell in love with him. Like, this is not y'all need to actually
Stockholm
look.
syndrome.
Yeah, y'all need to look at some of these people before you start saying how much you really like how much you like them.
Like, ah, she loves him so much. Yeah, because he
He
just
tortured her.
destroyed her. He destroyed her psyche.
Yeah, like that was she was his psychiatrist and then like he broke her literally and physically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and then like, I used to be a big James Patterson reader. I bet I read everything he put out until I went back to school the first time. And then it was like 2 years later after getting my first master's, I was like, oh, let me go back and read James Patterson. It's only been 2 years. Surely he hasn't put out that many books. And I went back and looked and he had put out like 12 books in 2 years. I was like, you know what? I have no idea where to even catch up with him.
Yeah, I've never read any of his books.
He I really actually liked the Alex Cross series is actually really good. Women's Murder Club is another one that we read. My mom and I were actually reading that series. And it was actually pretty good. And then I found out his dirty little secret, which is he wanted to be the most published author of the 20th century. And so he uses a team of ghostwriters and they basically like he gives them like the storyline. This is from what I understand. He gives them the storyline and they basically write the book the way he wants it written and it gets published under his name. It's the way I understand it.
Hold on, hold on. I'm still in the room. So I was at the thrift store the other day and I found these in the book section. So just like some westerns
Oh
dealing with
wow.
this Slocum guy. And upon further um investigation,
Uh-huh.
this is I think this series of Slocum stuff
Mm-hmm.
is the longest running book series like ever.
Really?
Yeah, so like let's see, today's hottest action western. Let's see, I'm gonna Google it real quick.
I know my grandfather was not a big reader, but he read if you gave him a Louis L'Amour novel, he would sit in his chair and read that book and God help you if you interrupted him. He would read everything from Louis L'Amour.
Let's see, Slocum Western series, yeah, by Jake Logan. Slocum Westerns are the longest running series of Westerns ever written, encompassing over 400 books.
Wow.
all of which are published under the pen name Jake Logan, which apparently is, again, a team.
Mm-hmm.
I think is a team of ghostwriters. Um, the target demographic, the books are claimed to be adult oriented due to the presence of 3 explicitly described sex scenes in each of the numerous books. uh, yeah, the books have been written by a number of authors and all feature John Slocum as the protagonist. So, yeah, crazy, man. Like 400 books in the series.
That's wild. That
Like,
is absolutely wild.
that's got to be the longest like of anything. It feel like.
Yeah, 400 books. That's nuts. But speaking of books, so next week you will be at a con. Which con are you
Coast
going to?
Con.
Ghost Con? Coast Con
Coast Con, yeah. In Biloxi.
in Biloxi. And you're actually going to try and get an episode recorded while you're there. Is that right? Is that what we talked
Yeah.
about?
Me and my friends, we're gonna try and record almost like a round table
Mm-hmm.
type discussion for next week. Um, yeah, we would have started the 4th book, Goblet of Fire, this week,
Mm-hmm.
but then we would have had a break for next week.
Yeah.
So 2 episodes from now is going to be when we start the first of 3 episodes on the Goblet of Fire.
Yep. I'm yeah, we're doing this because I am going to be out of town and can't record.
Yeah.
So
You were out of town last week and you're out of town next week.
traveling, always traveling. I'm telling you that travel sports are, if you do it right, they're a lot of fun, but man, they keep you ripping
Busy.
and running all the
Yeah.
time. So we will be in Georgia, going back to Georgia for the weekend. Unfortunately, I don't actually have time to go see any people in Georgia because it's an 11-hour drive. And then we were going to try to figure out, hey, maybe we could run back over and go see some people, but then that would make it like a 13-hour drive home. So not doing that. Just not doing it.
Yeah, that doesn't sound terribly fun.
Yeah, it's one of those
Driving
things
that
like
much.
could it be done? Yes. Should it though? Probably not.
You have one life. You have one life, Mike.
That's it. That's it. So we're going to me and my youngest are going to run down there and let her compete. I'm going to let some people know that we're going to be there and see if they be like, look, this is where we are. You're more than welcome to come say hi. And if they don't want to drive over to see us, that's on them.
Gotcha.
We're driving 90% of the way there. If they don't want to drive the last 10%, such is life.
Yep, such is life. Like if anybody has ever like, if I see people that I know,
Mm-hmm.
like you, for instance, if you went down to New Orleans and I was like, hey, you're an hour away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to meet up?
Yeah.
Like I'll drive an hour. And most people are like, some people are like, yeah, okay. Others are like, oh well, I've got, they might have everything planned out,
Right.
and they never thought that I was that close to there. So
Yeah, like I felt bad whenever you were in Kentucky and I couldn't come see you because it's like 2 hours from where I live, but kids.
yeah, hey, look, I'll plan on making my way up there at some point.
Mm.
Um, maybe in the warmer months, and we can go to uh,
Kings Island.
Kings Island. I was about to say King's Crossing, but that's
that's,
that's
that's the opposite
it's Harry
direction.
Potter. Let's go to King's Crossing and jump on the Hogwarts Express.
So funny story. A couple of years ago, we went to, I guess it was 2 or 3 years ago now. We went to Universal whenever my wife came back from deployment, and completely just random of some friends of ours from Alaska were there, and it was actually my oldest daughter. It was like her best friend while we were in Alaska, and they had like one of those things like she like her mom had posted something like while she was there, and we were like, wait a second, are y'all at Universal right now? And she was like, yeah. So we actually got to be able to we met up and um had breakfast with them and went and rode a couple rides, and then they had to leave because it was actually their last day there. And then later on that night, we met up with one of my best friends from high school, met up with her and her family, and it completely again unscripted. She had posted something about going to Florida for the for that particular time frame. I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to Florida too. Where are you going? She was, or when are you going? And she posted when she was going. I was like, hang on a minute, and I texted her, and I was like, where are you going to be? And so it come to find out we were going to be in Universal like at the exact same time frame. So we got to run into friends from Alaska and one of my best friends from high school, who's actually a good friend of Kelly's too, because she was in our wedding. Um, she was one of Kelly's bridesmaids, but it was like the best trip ever because we got to go ride roller coasters and ran into groups of friends that we hadn't seen in years.
I have a similar story. So in 2019, when we first went to Disney, um, Casey from Tacticalories,
Uh huh.
I saw that I saw some post either by him or his wife that mentioned they were going to Disney in December. And that
Mm-hmm.
night. So when I contacted them, I was like, hey, when are y'all going? And it happened to overlap with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we planned on like we planned on meeting up, and we
Mm-hmm.
actually so the Saturday that I got in, like I went to that was the year that LSU was playing uh that was the year they actually ended up winning the championship in football.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Saturday we arrived down in Texas there or Texas in Florida
Mm-hmm.
at Disney, we
Mm-hmm.
checked in and then we went to find a bar outside of
Mm-hmm.
the Disney Circle
Right.
bubble to watch the game. And um, Casey and his family showed up or came and met us. Not
Mm-hmm.
they didn't just show up; they met us
Right.
for dinner, and we hung out. And then we went back to the resort. We were both staying at the Art of Animation that time. And it was funny because when we left the restaurant, we stopped at Target, and then I was driving us all. They had gotten like an Uber to the
Mm-hmm.
restaurant, and then I drove us all back to uh, the resort. And it was I missed the turn like 3 times to get to our resort, and so like we just looped like
Mm-hmm.
we were in the
Driving in
car
circles.
30-40 minutes trying to get back to the resort. And so like often I'll text Casey. I'm like, "Hey, we should go get lost on Disney property again for 40 minutes with our kids sleeping in the back." Because at that time, all three of the kids, his twins and
Mm-hmm.
Jules, they all were passed out in the
That's
back
awesome.
seat while I was driving. And like, it's okay. It was 7 of us
Mm-hmm.
in a Dodge Nitro. Was it a Nitro or something? It was a Dodge SUV.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we had 3 kids and 4 adults.
Snug quarters.
and and Casey's a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, he might you and he might be like the same height. So like just imagine being like crammed in this little little thing. Um yeah, good times. Good
Right on,
times.
man. It's always fun whenever you kind of plan something and then you unexpectedly or like just coincidentally, I guess, whatever you want to say it, like end up meeting up with people that you really like and you get to hang out and spend time with them in those cool places.
Yeah. And Casey's a good guy. So he's doing a lot of good things right now.
Hmm.
Um kind of sucks.
He's
Fuck,
kicking
fuck
cancer in the
cancer.
teeth. Yeah,
Yeah, fuck cancer. So
absolutely.
good for Casey. He's a good guy, and his family's pretty damn cool too. So
Right on. Right on. So not to end on a slightly somber note, but so next week will be Coast Con,
yes,
and then the week after that we will start the first part of Goblet of Fire.
yeah. I don't have my phone. I texted you the breakdown of it. If you want to look it up real quick.
I am terrible about deleting text messages.
Oh, you delete text messages?
It's so whenever I was whenever I was a police officer, I worked in narcotics for a little bit and just got into the habit of deleting text messages every day. Didn't want the information on my phone, so I just deleted stuff every day. And it's one of those things that stuck with me for a very long time. But I have gotten better about it. Hey, guess what I just found? All right, the breakdown for Goblet of Fire. I did not delete it. I think because we text so much, I don't delete that text thread, or I haven't deleted it. 3 sections. Section 1 will be chapters 1 through 15. Section 2 will be 16 to 25. And the thrilling conclusion will be 26 to 37.
Nice.
So in 2 weeks, we will go through the first 15 chapters
Of the Goblet of Fire.
of the Goblet of Fire.
Harry Potter, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?
He said calmly.
Did you see that meme?
Oh yeah.
Jason Kelsey and Andy Reid.
Oh no, I hadn't seen that one. I'm sorry. I thought you were just talking about any of the memes where it's like there was one that came out a couple years ago and it was like Harry Potter, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? And then somebody's holding the book. It says Dumbledore said calmly.
Somebody took the image of Jason Kelsey or no Travis Kelsey yelling at Andy Reid on the sideline of the Super Bowl. But Harry Potter, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?
That's funny. That's funny.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for having this great conversation. It's great to catch up sometimes without expectations.
Right.
Hopefully the people that listen to this actually have fun listening to us. Literally, we do this to talk to each other.
Basically. And
And
for those of you that are listening that enjoy our conversations, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell, follow,
all those
download,
things,
share, all the stuff.
It helps get this out so that people like you that don't know we exist find out that we exist.
Not like me. He's not talking to me. He's talking about the listener, not me. Because I know we exist because I'm here.
Yeah. I know. Well, I think you exist.
Pretty sure.
I'm seeing something.
Pretty sure I exist.
Yeah.
So anywho, Brandon, you have a fantastic day. I'm going to go meal prep some breakfast for the week. So,
okay, cool.
So y'all have fun. We'll chat later.
Absolutely.